Welcome back to Gaelic Games Fan TV. It is the football review show. We're going to be looking back at the ladies' football final, and we're going to be looking ahead to the All-Ireland Camogie final, which takes place this weekend. Joined by Matthew Hurley from the Gaelic Statsman podcast to review the ladies' football final and discuss the Camogie final. A few bits and bobs to discuss in between. Mickey Graham going to Leitrim, a few other GA news stories as well, so plenty to always keep up with in the world of the GAA. Matthew, I suppose that's the end of Gaelic football anyway for another year. Kerry getting the last laugh, I suppose you could say, and winning the ladies football championship for the first time since 1993, and in the process knocking Cork off there, off the top of the charts there. So I mean, yeah, not the best weekend maybe if you don't like Kerry.
Suppose so when you think about it that way. Yeah, thanks for having me on again, Aaron. Yeah, I suppose at the same time though, whether you're from Cork or whether you're from Dublin, you have to feel happy for one player and one player in particular, Louise Hart, because it just would have been a shame if a player like that wouldn't have won the All-Ireland. And I stand by that. Look, you might have that banter with the men's and say that you'd be celebrating Dublin beating Kerry and all that like it did last year, obviously after the men's final. But for the ladies, they haven't won it for such a long time now. 31 years is a massive gap. It would have been great, obviously, if Galway won it as well. Like Roisin Leonard and Olivia Divley haven't got their All-Ireland medal yet. Neither is Nicola Ward. They have done a club level, which you could say, like Olivia Divley and Nicola Ward have, Roisin Leonard hasn't. So I suppose you could say that they have an All-Ireland medal already and the Kerry players don't. And maybe that's a fairy tale story in its own right. But I think the pleasing aspect from a Kerry point of view this year was Louise probably didn't have her best year in terms of scoring in front of the post, but you had other players that stepped up, the likes of Daniel O'Leary, the likes of Emma Deneen, you had Katie Cronin at the back, which was an absolute warrior of a player to have in full back line. You had Aoife Delan, who had a very good performance yesterday and throughout the season. Obviously, the goal topped it off in the final as well. So yeah, it was just a great performance by Kerry, great team performance. It was just great to see Louise get her All-Ireland medal. Whether you're from Cork, whether you're from Dublin, whether you're from Limerick, Clare, you'd just be delighted to see a player like that get an All-Ireland medal. And maybe we'll see Amy Mackin get an All-Ireland medal for Armagh next year if she keeps fit. Like that's the next player on the list that you just wish would get an All-Ireland medal. But yeah, the ladies football championship will be interesting in the next few years. Will Kerry build a dynasty? Will Armagh come back into it with Amy Mackin hopefully coming back into contention into the team, or will someone else come into the fray? So it'll be very interesting, the ladies football championship in the next few years at senior level. And coming into the senior fray, obviously we'll talk about later, Leitrim. What a story. And it's probably, and I'd argue this hour, and I know it's only July or it's August now, 6th of August today, but I'd argue Leitrim is the story of the year in Gaelic Games. If you look at the full spectrum, this is an incredible story. This is a team that is ranked 28 across the little National League, and they're into the senior championship, beating the 8th best team in the country according to the National League ranking. That'd be like, I know GA math doesn't add up, but that'd be like in men's football if Longford beat Armagh in the All-Ireland Championship. So it's an incredible story. It really is from a Leitrim point of view. Obviously, Fermanagh, Emer Smith grabbing all the headlines in the Junior Championship as well. Great day out for Fermanagh, for Leitrim and for Kerry, and a great day out, I'd imagine, for the 6 counties involved. Great day for their fans involved for the bank holiday weekend. And yeah, the football season's over, as you mentioned there, and there's only one more weekend of inter-county to go, and that is the Camogie next weekend.
Absolutely, yeah. We'll discuss all 3 finals, and obviously Leitrim's win as well, because as you said, like quite extraordinary really for them to pull off what they pulled off, the unthinkable really. And I suppose there's been shocks and surprises really over ladies football in the last couple of years when you look at the journey that Meath have gone on. Kerry, albeit look, it was their, they are top in the roll of honour in terms of All-Ireland wins, but it is their first since 93, and really up until the last couple of years, they'd looked a good bit off, a million miles off only probably 5, 6, 7 years ago in terms of winning All-Ireland. So, like, it probably does show, like, with ladies football, that the gap, like, you can bridge that gap very, very quickly. We saw Armagh do it. We've saw Meath do it. Look, you're always still going to have the likes of Dublin, the likes of Cork, the likes of Galway in ladies football, always going to be thereabouts. And Kerry, like, they might be thereabouts now for the next 10 years. Who knows if they keep producing players. But overall, like, the gap, like, when you're seeing Leitrim come up, when you're seeing Meath come up, Laois, Kildare, these teams, like, they're all proven, like, they're more than capable of having a crack at the big boys.
Exactly so, and maybe it gives hope to the other senior teams that are chasing down the coattails that they can win the senior championship, because you looked at Galway's performance against Dublin in the quarter-final, and I discussed this with on my podcast last week with former Waterford footballer Michelle Ryan, and she agreed with me that once Dublin were beaten in that quarter-final by Galway, it just opened up the championship, and it was almost like anybody could win from there. Like Cork were there after a poor enough league campaign. Like it probably epitomised it in general when Cork and Galway met each other at the semi-final. One of them was going to get to an All-Ireland final, and both got relegated from Division 1 this year. So, like, the ladies' football was very, very open in general this season. You looked at Armagh even getting to the semi-final without Amy Mackin is a massive achievement for Gregory McGonagall's men, I'd imagine. Meath have fallen off the cliff a bit, but you'd be hopeful from a Meath point of view that they will come back in the next 2 years with Vicky Wall coming back into the team. Dublin still have young enough players, like you still have the likes of Annabelle Timothy there, you still have Nicole Owens, I'd imagine. Carter Rowe was missing for the game against Galway in the quarter-final, which ultimately I think lost it for Dublin. If Dublin had Carter Rowe that day, we could have been talking about a different story today. We could have been talking about Dublin as All-Ireland champions. Cork will improve next year. Obviously, they have young players after all the retirements last year between the O'Sullivan sisters. You have Roisin Feeney retiring, or Finn, all them. You have a young team from Cork that reached the semi-final this year, and you'd be hopeful from a Cork point of view that they will get back up in the pedestal. And then you look at Kerry. Like, for Kerry to build this, I think it will depend on Louise Verhorty. Will she stick around? She's 33 years of age now. You look at Caught Lynch, Lorraine Scanlon. Will they stick around for next season? Will Emma Costello come back into it? Will Louise Galvin come back into it? But even if they don't come back into it, you do have young players coming through. Like Emma Deneen's only 24 years of age. Daniel O'Leary's 21. Katie Cronin's around 26, 27 years of age, I'd imagine. And she was a rock at that full back road for Kerry. Aoife Delan's only 22 coming in this year, and she was absolutely exceptional. Ciara Butler, the goalkeeper, is only 20. So I'd imagine Kerry will be around for the next few seasons in general for the LGFA Championship, and it's up to the rest of the pack just to chase this Kerry team down. But I suppose the interesting kind of dynamic in the senior championship next year is about Leitrim. Will they yo-yo, kind of like what Laois did this year, went up for intermediate 2 years ago, then went back down again? Kildare were the relegation playoff as well, who coincidentally got promoted from intermediate last year. Or will Leitrim build a bit of confidence and stay in senior level? You hope that will be the case, but even looking at Leitrim's panel, and this is an incredible story from Leitrim when you look at it in this way as well. Across the 6 teams, they all had 30-player panels. You look at Kerry, Galway, Tyrone, Fermanagh, all had 30-player panels. Leitrim only had 25 players on their panel. That might be a worry going into senior next year. Will they have a tight panel going into it next season? They have some magnificent players, no doubt about it. But it's about keeping the Laura O'Dowds, the Mirren Devaney's, the Michelle Gokians all fully fit. Alva Clancy's all fully fit when it comes to the senior championship to have any chance of staying up. So yeah, it'll be interesting to see if Leitrim do stay up next season. It'll be interesting to see if Donegal do well next year. They got that draw against Kerry, who ended up winning the All-Ireland. Will they build on that kind of performance in the championship for next season? Waterford reached the All-Ireland quarterfinals as well. So there are good teams coming up through the ranks. It's just a matter of will they follow the dynamics set by Kerry in the senior championship. But to be honest, if you were to say a winner right now, I'd probably go for Dublin, because like there's still some young players in and around the panel. Mick Bowen has shown no indication that he's going to leave the Dublin ladies footballer. So I'd imagine they'll be favourites next season. But it should be interesting, the ladies football championship next year. I'll be probably keeping my close eye on Armagh as well to see if Amy Mackin comes back, and that should be an interesting dynamic as well.
Absolutely, yeah. And look, we'll start things off by discussing the senior final. Kerry 3-14, Galway 11 points. Fairly comfortable in the end for Kerry. Like, I suppose Galway stuck with Kerry early on, but like, was it a surprise how comfortable it was for Kerry? Like, given the fact that Galway had beaten Cork, they'd beaten Dublin as well, and Dublin were the favourites. Dublin beat Kerry fairly comfortably enough, really, in the final last year. So it was a bit of a surprise that it was a 10-point win. Like, it was fairly comfortable. Like, once Kerry got that goal in the first half and went 1-8-3 up, there was no looking back at all, really. Like, so it was a surprise at all with how convincing of a win it was for the Kingdom.
When you look at some of the dynamics in it, it probably wasn't too much of a shock. Obviously, the margin itself, 12 points, is a massive margin, and you wouldn't have expected that in an All-Ireland final. But like I discussed on my podcast during the week as well, like Galway relied a lot on Roisin Leonard and Olivia Dively for scores. Like, you look at the semi-final against Cork, if you looked at in depth, all but 2 of their shots were by them 2 players. So Alpha Davert took one, and I think Shauna Hines was the other one that took a shot. I can't remember off the top of my head now, but only two other players took shots other than them two players in general. And I had a feeling if Kerry quietened them down, if they got the best kind of man markers to go on those sorts of players, I think Kerry would have got a long way to win it. And Kerry, got their defensive plan in order, and they got it down to a T. Katie Cronin was excellent at defending, and her work in the full back position translated to the whole full back line. Ailish Lynch, I heard Katie's actually interviewing the GR with Dan Casey just before we went on air here. And apparently the plan was to put Ailish Lynch on Roisin Leonard. Don't let her out of her sight. And Ailish Lynch was absolutely excellent on her. Aoife Delan was brilliant at wing back as well, not just defensively but offensively, as shown by the goal at the end of the first half as well. And yeah, Kerry just affected their plan, and they did absolutely brilliant on it. And it's probably worth noting as well, out of the last 6 championship games, including the final, Kerry only conceded 1 goal, and that was to Donegal and Ballybuffet. They kept 5 clean sheets in 6 games in the last 6 games of the championship, and that translated for the goalkeeper, Ciara Butler, the full-back, Kaylee Cronin, the cornerbacks, Ciara Murphy and Ailish Lynch, and you had Deirdre Cardy, who had an outstanding year at centre-back as well, Aoife Delan, who came in for Cork Lynch, who was injured at the start of the season, and Cork couldn't get back into the team. Cork looked very good coming onto the pitch. She looked fully fit, but she just couldn't get back into it because of how well Aoife Delan was playing, and that's a credit to her. Aisling O'Connell at number 5 was absolutely excellent as well. A whole new midfield in Mary O'Connell and Anna Galvin. I know Anna Galvin played at number 12 last year, but the midfield pairing last year was Louise Galvin, who was out this year because of family commitments, and Lorraine Scanlon, who was injured at the start of the year and was dropped to the bench this year. You had 2 completely new midfielders in them sort of positions, and Kerry were absolutely excellent in midfield. They did brilliant in that department as well, and their forwards were absolutely electrifying. 75% shot accuracy in the first half was absolutely exceptional for a ladies football final, and 70% overall. Emma Deneen, a goal getter, a fox in the box, absolutely excellent there. Hannah O'Donoghue coming onto the pitch with 1 goal and 2 points. And Louise didn't have her best year. If I say it, like, Louise was absolutely brilliant last year and set the high standards for herself, but she wasn't that really influential in games this season. But this All-Ireland final, she scored 6 points. She had about 7 or 8 shots overall, 75% shot accuracy, 2 points from play as well, and clutch scores as well. At times with Galway, we're trying to peg them back, and I suppose the first half made a massive difference. Galway had a shot accuracy in the first half of 30%. Kerry was 75%, and that made a massive difference in how the game went in the end. But to be honest with you, I was shocked by the margin, but I wasn't shocked that Kerry were comfortable enough winners, because like if they got the best man markers on Roisin and on Olivia, I thought Kerry were going to go a long way to winning this game, and that's how it panned out. Unfortunately for Galway, they couldn't find another player to get those shots off like Olivia Dibley and Roisin Leonard have done throughout the championship campaign, and they paid the heavy price.
Absolutely, yeah. Like I suppose from a Kerry perspective, like that's 3 finals they've been in a row. Obviously, they've broken the duck. They've gotten over the line. They lost to Dublin last year. They lost to Meath, obviously, the season previous. Like, could Kerry be a bit of a dominant force now in ladies football, do you think? Like, fair enough, there might be 1 or 2 players that are, maybe might call it a day, who knows? But as you said, a lot of new faces have come into the side this year. A lot of players have really stood up, likes of Emma Deneen, who's been absolutely outstanding. But what do you think? Could this be a dominant spell now for Kerry in terms of ladies football?
I think it does depend on how many retirements Kerry will get. Caught Lynch, Louise Dever-Hurtig, Lorraine Scanlon. There's question marks about them. Will they give it another year? Especially Louise. She's 33 now, 34 next season. Will she call it a day now that she's got her Celtic Cross in the back pocket? I'm not sure. I don't know what Louise's kind of temperament off the pitch is like. So we'll have to see what that'll be like in the off season. Other than that, like the players you mentioned there, like Emma Deneen has been absolutely outstanding. Daniel O'Leary's been brilliant from centre forward. Hannah O'Donoghue was still only 23 years of age and did exceptionally well off the bench. Niamh Di Crowell still in her early 20s as well. Niamh Carmody is about 26, 27 years of age. Still has a lot to offer to Kerry LGFA. You still have Anna Galvin there, who's still in her 20s. A lot to offer to Kerry LGFA. So I think if they keep that core group together, and if they keep Louise, if they convince Louise to stay on another year, then I think Kerry have a massive chance of winning 2 in a row. I think a lot will depend though on other teams, specifically Armagh and specifically Dublin. Like, will Dublin reach the heights that they got to after a few years? Will Eilish O'Dowd come back into the fray? Sinead Goldrick's already come back into the fray this season. Will she stick around? Like, Seamus made a very good point about the Dublin team as well. Eilish O'Dowd was missing this season. I think she was either injured or she went to AFLW. I can't remember off the top of my head, but she was missing this year, which Dublin had to rejig the team a small bit. They had to put Laura McGee back into midfield, and that wing back role then was open for Dublin. So I think, like, if they get Eilish O'Dowd back into the team, if they convince Sinead Goldrick to stick on for another year after her AFLW exploits, I think Dublin will be a massive threat next season as well. And the other team is Armagh. Like, without Amy Mackin, Armagh were 4 points off Kerry. They were well within the game in the first half as well. They only conceded 1 point to Kerry in the second half. Let's not forget that in the semi-final in Tullamore, Kerry were under par in that second half, and that was down to Armagh's pressure in that game. Imagine if Armagh had Amy Mackin that night. We could have been talking about a different story. We could have been talking about an Armagh team in an All-Ireland final. And you looked at Armagh in the Little National League, they were absolutely outstanding with Amy Mackin in the team, Blaugheen coming back to the team for the league final as well. They were absolutely brilliant. And as soon as Amy tore ACL, it was almost like this is going to be a hard task for Armagh to win the All-Ireland. But I'd imagine if Amy comes back next season, and if Gregory McGonigal builds the same kind of structures as he did in the league campaign and in the All-Ireland to an extent as well, I think Armagh will be a massive threat to the All-Ireland next season. So I think those are the 3 teams, or the 2 teams, that Kerry should be looking towards in seriousness next season, in Dublin and Armagh. But then again, like, if Kerry do concentrate on their own thing, if they keep the momentum going, there's no reason why they can't get 2-3 in a row. Like, they are a very, very good team. Once they've got one, it's almost like the Limerick Hurlers as an hour. Once they've won one in 2018, they got more. I know they lost in 2019, but they got more and more and more after that then. The Dublin Footballers the same. As soon as they broke the stranglehold in 2011, they started winning after that. So I feel like Kerry could win another few All-Irelands, but then again, it does depend on retirements from a Kerry point of view and how well Dublin and Armagh will do next season. And it depends, obviously, on a bit of luck for those sorts of teams as well.
Absolutely, yeah. For Galway, I mean, as you said before, like, they've had a very good year. They can take a lot of positives, I think, from this year. As you said before, like, beating Dublin, obviously beating Cork in the semi-finals as well. Not many people gave them a chance really going into either of those 2 games. Where do you think it went wrong for them in the final, if it did go wrong? Like, look, don't get me wrong, Kerry were absolutely brilliant. You take nothing away from how well that Kerry played in this final. But 12 points is a big margin, especially for an All-Ireland final, in my opinion. So where do you think it did go wrong for Galway? Or am I being harsh there, where Kerry just that good?
You could say a bit of both. Like, Kerry were absolutely brilliant at taking their shots, and Katie Cronin, the pressure she was exerting for the full back line especially, was absolutely superb. And Eilish Lynch did a brilliant job on Roisin Leonard. There are some things that Galway could have done differently, I'd imagine, yes. Like, for instance, in this final, they scored 11 points, and 7 of those were by, as I mentioned before, Olivia Dively or Roisin Leonard. 4 points were without them. So that's a problem there. And Galway didn't have a massive score in terms of that. And I look towards, like, you don't want to be harsh at the same time, but Louise Ward had an excellent season up until the final, but mostly on a defensive role rather than an offensive role, if you know what I mean. She was getting a lot of turnovers in, even in the All-Ireland final, even in the semi-final against Cork. But her attacking output, she rarely got shots at the goal in this game. And against Cork in the semi-final as well in Tullamore. So yeah, I think Galway needed to have another player, another hero other than Olivia Dively and Tracy Leonard, or Roisin Leonard, excuse me, just to have a bit of a backup plan in place. And I think, like, it did catch up to Galway in the end, but Galway did so well to get to this stage, because let's not forget, they had retirements in the off-season through Roisin's sister Tracy Leonard and Maria Shoiga retire in the off-season. Those were 2 massive players in the Galway team. And to get to an All-Ireland final without them 2 players to retire in the off-season the way that they did before the league campaign, and the fact that Galway went down to Division 2 as well in the league, had a very under-par league campaign. For Galway to get to the All-Ireland final is a massive achievement for them. Maybe they could have done a lot better. I think defensively, there wasn't much they could have done. Like, Kerry, 75% shot accuracy, 70% overall, 75% in the first half. Galway couldn't do a lot about that. That's just down to good attacking from a Kerry point of view. But I think what massively irked Galway, in my opinion, was probably not having that extra backup plan if Tracy Leonard was shackled and if Olivia Diffity was shackled, because Galway didn't have a plan B after that. And Kerry, made road, made hay after that, and it was just going to be one-way traffic after it. But look, Galway had a very good season. They reached the All-Ireland final. They should be very proud of their efforts. They won a Connacht title as well, beating Mayo in the final. They beat Dublin in the quarterfinal and Cork in the semi-final, as you said. And yeah, they've had a good year, but the final just didn't go their way.
Absolutely, yeah. Massive congratulations to the Kingdom. They get over the line, first All-Ireland since 1993. And yeah, commiserations to Galway. Still a very, very good season. Still a lot to be positive for. But as you said, arguably the story of the weekend goes to Leitrim. 3-11 to 3-10. They beat Tyrone. For the first time since 2007, Leitrim are intermediate All-Ireland champions. Quite an extraordinary story, really, from a Leitrim perspective. Alva Clancy with 2-3 and Laura O'Dowd with 1-2 in the game, really making the difference. What an incredible story for Leitrim. Like, I suppose such is the nature of this year's championship, where we've had surprises, we've had shocks, we've had unexpected results, really. And as you said, ranked 28th in the league versus rank 8th. And, nobody would have ever predicted it. But here we go. Leitrim have gone and done it.
One person did say it on my podcast last week, Michelle Ryan, and I'd give her a lot of credit for this. She said Leitrim would beat Tyrone.
Fair play.
And to be honest, like, I think that's prediction of the year. Because considering, and I know a lot of people would have, stuffed their noses at this and said Tyrone would be easy winners before the final, but it was more pointing out Leitrim did beat Tyrone in the group stages of the LGFA Championship in the intermediate level this season. And there was the fear from Leitrim supporters and from wishing supporters and things like that Leitrim wouldn't do it a second time and beat this Tyrone team, because Tyrone got to the Division 2 final. They tested Kildare, a decent enough Kildare team in the end, obviously, and got to Division 1 of the National League, which they will be in next year. And amazingly, they're the only non-senior team in Division 1 of the Little National League next year, which is crazy stat in its own right. So Tyrone should be favourites looking at that for the intermediate crown next season. But this was a miraculous game from a Leitrim point of view, and you had so many standout players. The 4 players in particular that were scoring, not just in this game, but throughout the whole season. Mira Devani, Michelle Gokian, Alva Clancy, Laura O'Dowd, absolutely excellent players. And worth noting as well, Laura O'Dowd is sisters with Ailish O'Dowd, who won the All-Ireland senior title with Dublin last season. So it must have been massive celebrations in that household for the last year or so. It must have been absolutely outstanding. And I would imagine, like, Leitrim in the senior grade, if Ailish O'Dowd plays with Dublin, it should be very interesting if Dublin come up against Leitrim. It could be sister against sister. Should be very interesting kind of dynamic next season if Leitrim were to play Dublin. But I don't know, would Ailish have the temperament to play against her home county? I'm not sure. But yeah, it's a massive achievement for Leitrim, and you had some warriors on the pitch. You had the attackers, obviously, the defensive players. Charlene Tyrrell, the story about her over the last weekend or so has gone viral around social media. Aisling O'Reilly from Off the Ball covered this as well. To put in the context for our listeners about Charlene's story, she had her son Noah, I think, over 10 years ago, and she had postnatal depression. She left the game 10 years ago. She came back and went back to play with Leitrim football after 10 years out of the game. She's now an intermediate champion for the second time in her career. She was the only Leitrim player from that 2007 team on the 2024 team as well. It's a miraculous story. And in this game in general, she had about 4 or 5 turnovers in this game against Tyrone. Warrior on and off the pitch, absolutely incredible, and 38 years of age as well. It's an incredible story, it really is, and one of the individual stories of the year as well. And it was just joy around the county of Leitrim. And I suppose, like, I know Mickey Graham's coming into the men's footballers, and we'll talk about that in a sec, but even for the men, I think this is going to be a massive boost to the county of Leitrim. To get a team like that into the senior level of this, alongside the likes of Galway, Mayo, Dublin, Cork, Kerry, Donegal, Armagh. It's a massive achievement, and it really is from a Leitrim point of view. Congratulations to all involved. And as for Tyrone, look, Tyrone have had a brilliant season, and look, it didn't go their way. 35 shots in this game. it's a 60-minute game, Aaron, which is absolutely incredible, but they still didn't win the game, which is an even more incredible stat in its own right. 37% shot accuracy, 30 wide, 7 drop short. Across wide and drop short, that's 20 shots. Like, it just wasn't their day. And the Chloe McCaffrey shot at the end probably epitomised their day when the shot went wide. Leitrim hung onto the ball and the Hooter went, obviously, Leitrim won the game. But Tyrone had a lot of chances. You have to give them a lot of credit because they had Joanne Barrett in sin bin after a yellow card for the Leitrim penalty, which Alva Clancy stuck away. But they still showed a lot of guts to get back into the game. The Avon McHugh goal, obviously, they had a lot of points through Chloe McCaffrey for Sorka Gormley, Sorka Gormley coming onto the pitch. You had Ellie McNamee coming onto the pitch and getting a point as well. Like, you had a lot of players coming onto the pitch and getting a point for Tyrone point of view, which is a brilliant sight to see. Emma Conroy as well. And that was 3 bench players, Sorka Gormley, Ellie McNamee and Emma Conroy coming onto the pitch and getting a point for Tyrone. But their main players were snuffed out, especially in the first half. Like, Chloe McCaffrey didn't have her best game. Maria Canavan only scored 1 point in this game, which is very, very unlike her. So, like, Leitrim, you have to give them a lot of credit as well. They snuffed out the Tyrone threats, and they did so expertly. But Tyrone, I'd imagine they'll be favourites for the Intermediate Championship next year, and they will get a lot of experience playing against senior level opposition in Division 1 next year of the league. But it is Leitrim's day. It's a massive achievement for them, and congratulations to all involved.
Absolutely, yeah. Jack says here, if and buts, Kerry won and deserved. Each team have injuries. Absolutely, Kerry do deserve. They're all Ireland. There's absolutely no disputing that. Win by 12 points. You know, there's no disputing an All Ireland victory. As good as that. The well, actually, before we move on to the junior final, I do want to. You mentioned obviously the fact of how much this could galvanise Leitrim in terms of. With obviously the men's team being in Division 3, like realistically, how long will it take for the men's team to get to senior level? Will it ever happen, or or get to a senior championship, get to the All Ireland Championship? It might happen. You never know. You can never discount these things. But other than 1994 when they won that Connacht title, it's very rarely ever happened. When we're looking back in terms of winning major honours. So. Like for Leitrim fans, like we saw some counties and how fans have really got behind, like the Meath ladies team, for example, the fans have really, really got behind that team, travel in huge numbers. You think of the Offaly under 20s, like this could be something really for Leitrim fans to really, really get behind in the next year. And you hope that they do, in fairness, because it is a massive opportunity. And look, maybe they might go up to senior level. And as you said, they could come straight back down. It mightn't go according to plan. But to be fair, like they've bridged that gap so quickly. So who's to say they don't go up to senior level and don't make a good crack of it?
Exactly. So they have some magnificent players, obviously, and they have hungry players that will be well able for senior level. Like Michelle Guckin, for example, I think herself and Roisin Leonard from Galway are the only two that could kick 45s from the ground and can kick them from long distances over the bar. I really think so. I think both of those players have some long kicking distance. Michelle Guckin, and that is a brilliant thing to have on your team. Alva Clancy and Mur Devani, as far as I know, had soccer backgrounds as well. So it's a brilliant story from a Leitrim point of view. But the fear is you don't want to become the next Laois, the next Tyrone even. Like Tyrone won the Intermediate Championship in 2018 and then went straight back down to Intermediate after that. So it's almost like you have to keep staying afloat. Meath have done it expertly, and you have to give Eamon Murray and his panel for at that time a lot of credit for that. But you look at Westmeath, the year Meath won the other senior level. Westmeath won an intermediate level. They went straight back down to the next season. Laois won the intermediate championship in 2022, went straight back down in 2024. Kildare won it in 23, nearly got relegated this time, only for a last minute penalty in the relegation playoff. So hopefully Leitrim do stay up and don't follow the same trajectory as those sorts of teams. So you'd be hoping that's kind of the case. And even like you look, there are some brilliant families in Leitrim as well, and they do get together, obviously, because many of the podcast listeners probably don't know this, but Keith Byrne, who's a brilliant player for Leitrim, the Leitrim men's team, obviously, I don't know, will he come back into the men's team next season? Is a brilliant scorer and all that. His sister actually plays soccer in the FAI league at the moment, Dervla. And I don't know, like, will she follow the same kind of a standpoint as Mira Devani and Alba Clancy and come back into the team now that they're in senior level? If she does, that's a massive boost because she's an excellent Gaelic footballer. She's an excellent soccer player as well. Like, I've seen her in a O'Connor Cup action for UL as well. An excellent footballer that Dervla Byrne is. And you look at Ailish O'Dowd as well. Will this entice her to go back from Dublin back to Leitrim in senior level? Like, there's a lot of things that can happen. There really is, and there's a lot of players with the DCU team. Leah Fox, I think, played in DCU's O'Connor Cup winning team last season, who came on the other day against Tyrone as well. There are some talented players at Leitrim, but it's all about really knitting them all together and keeping the same panel in and around them. Like, there's two. I think there's David Bruin, who's a player in the backline for Leitrim. He might have been a former player, but two of his sisters were in the half backline for Leitrim as well. That's another family there. So there is footballing families around Leitrim. There are some excellent players in and around the county as well. You have the likes of Charlene Tyrrell and you have the likes of Anya Tighe in midfield, who have been around the Leitrim panel for so many years and have looked for this opportunity. They've got it now. They've got it to senior level. They want to express this kind of football at senior level as well, which would be brilliant to see. And yeah, I think Leitrim could stay up, but it's all about just keeping these players together, maybe adding on a few more players if they find another few younger players coming through the ranks as well. And that's it for Leitrim. They have to stay up next season to keep the trajectory going. You hope they do so, because Leitrim is a brilliant, it's not a massive county, obviously it's a small county, but it's a massive county in terms of tradition of Gaelic football, and you hope that Leitrim will stay in the LGFA Senior Championship for as long as possible.
Yeah, and looking at the junior final then, Fermanagh 111, Loud 12 points. Fermanagh crowned junior All-Ireland champions for the first time since 2020. Emer Smith scoring 1-9, and interesting enough, across all divisions, all codes in ladies football, if we look at junior, All-Ireland and senior, Emer Smith was the top scorer last year across all three of those codes. So I mean, that's some going, like 1-9 in a final, and like Emer Smith, she must be one of the most underrated footballers in the country, surely.
But you look at her stats, she has to be. Like, she was the top scorer Division 4 overall for play, and in the championship, if we include the Ulster final against Derry, she scored a total in the junior championship of 10 goals and 50 points.
Wow.
That's a total of 80 points. That's absolutely remarkable, and she is a really good player, obviously. And in this final overall, 11 shots, 10 taken, 1-9 overall, 91% shot accuracy, and deservedly the player of the match. It was the Emer Smith show. It really, really was. Like, what an outstanding performance. And she's probably been talked about in LGFA circles for years now in terms of her scoring. She's been absolutely remarkable in that kind of standpoint. But in terms of her free taking as well, which isn't always the case when it comes to LGFA or men's football as well, if I add to that, you need a very, very good free taker. And Emer Smith nearly takes all of her frees. She took all of her frees and put them over the bar on Sunday, which deserves a lot of praise and fairness to her. 6 frees, 6 taken. A bit like Samuel Roy in the men's game. Like, every free you nearly ask of her, she's going to put it over. And that's some asset to have in the Fermanagh team. And Fermanagh, where would they be without her? Like, and even the other scorer in the team, the only 2 scorers amazingly, Emer obviously, and Blothy Bogue, who's heading down to AFLW in the near future as well. So she will be missed in intermediate if she doesn't come into the Fermanagh team next season. So it'll be all up to Emer Smith next season. It'll be all up to Brenda Bannon midfield, who's an excellent player as well. So Fermanagh might find it tough without Blothy Bogue in intermediate next season, but if they have a player like Emer Smith and keep her flying fit, they have a serious chance of doing something in intermediate, because you look down last year in the junior championship. They won the junior championship against Limerick. They got to the semi-final in the intermediate. They only lost to Tyrone by a goal this year in the semi-final. So, like, the gap between junior and intermediate isn't that big as it seems. So I think Fermanagh could make a massive impact in intermediate next season. It'll be very interesting to see. As for Loud had their chances in this game. Like, Fermanagh had 2 yellow cards in it, 2 sin binnings, and that was a chance for Loud to take advantage of it. And the chance to Kay Flood scored 8 points in this game, but was brilliant in this final in her own right. But she had a massive goal chance in this game. Like, you know the one I mean, are like the one where she's 1-on-1 the goalkeeper. All she does have to do is lob it, and she puts it over the bar. It was a massive chance for Louth to get a goal in this game. But then again, Fermanagh had 3 goal chances in the second half. So ultimately, when you look at the whole spectrum of the game, Fermanagh probably deserved to win it. And as you mentioned before, it was the Emer Smith show. 10 goals, 50 points is a miraculous number. And yeah, Emer Smith is a class player. That's all that needs to be said.
Yeah, we'll move on to the All-Ireland Camogie final in just a moment. But I suppose firstly, just a bit of GA news, bit of chat, obviously, that is going around. Mickey Graham has been announced as the new Leitrim senior football manager for the men's team. Following on from obviously being the second-hand man to Andy Moran. Andy Moran stepped down at the end of the season. His term came to an end as Leitrim manager following promotion from Division 4 to Division 3. I suppose it's not really much of a surprise. I think a lot of people even called this a year ago. Like when Mickey Graham was announced as the assistant manager to Andy Moran, a lot of people thought, this is a little bit interesting. You know, you've got an older manager coming in to be back up to the younger manager. In some ways, it's good because, you know, it's an experienced head in there. But in many ways, like you always felt like there was going to be a bit of a weird dynamic where like Andy Moran really should be the second-hand man. Like he should be learning from Mickey Graham. You know what I mean? Like that's how it should be when you look at the experience of Mickey Graham as a manager. Look, I don't think it made that much of a difference, or I don't think there ever was any issues between the two, because I still think Leitrim had a very good year, went on to get promoted. But it can't be that much of a surprise that Mickey Graham is now the Leitrim manager. And yeah, what's your thoughts on the appointment?
I think it's a very good appointment in terms of what Mickey has done for Cavan football, obviously winning that Ulster title in 2020 and getting Cavan competitive in the senior grade as well. They did absolutely brilliant in that, obviously getting to a Tailteann Cup final as well. And yeah, made the job for Ray McGallaghan easy enough, moving into Division 2 as well. So I think it's a very good appointment in that way. And as well as that, he knows the Leitrim players. He knows inside and out, obviously, after that year with Andy Moore being his right-hand man. I think it's a brilliant appointment for Leitrim. It's probably the most perfect appointment that they could have got after Andy Moore. And I would have said even, like, you looked at some counties, like they're looking for managers right now. Kildare, Derry, Longford, Paddy Christie are gone. They'd be good. The new manager would be going into those kind of jobs and saying, "Look at this mess. Look at this, and how am I going to fix this? How am I going to change the fortunes around?" With Mickey Graham, Andy Moore, and I didn't think this at the start of 2024, but Andy Moore has left this team in a good light. Obviously, the Tailteann Cup, it was a disappointing result against Wicklow, but they're in Division 3. They were competitive enough in the Tailteann Cup, got a few good results here and there as well. And yeah, I ultimately think it's a very good appointment for Leitrim GA as well. And yeah, I think it's the most perfect appointment that they could have got. I think it's a good appointment for them. Mickey Graham is very, very experienced. He knows, obviously, Leitrim inside and out. So ultimately, I think it's a very good appointment for Leitrim football, and they could be a threat for Division. Even though Division 3 is going to be very, very tough next season, because you look at the teams in it next season. The team that got promoted with Leitrim, Laois, got to the Tailteann Cup final. You would think that under Justin McNulty they'll keep that momentum going. Offaly, who were closest to relegation, surely they won't be as bad as this year under Declan Kelly, and with the younger players there like the Jack Bryants of the world, the Cormac Egan's. Surely Offaly will be back up contending sooner rather than later. The teams coming down from Division 2, Kildare, surely won't be as bad as they were this season. Fermanagh, I think, could be decent enough under Kieran Donnelly as well. He's building a nice team there as well. Clare, obviously, the All-Ireland series this year, tested Kerry all the way in the Munster final. They'll be a good team in Division 3 next season. Sligo almost beat Galway, who got to the All-Ireland final this season. The fifth place team, or Antrim, is the other team, decent enough under Andy McEntee as well. So even it will be very difficult to stay up in Division 3 next season from a Leitrim point of view. So I think that'll be the main aim for Mickey Graham next year, to stay up in Division 3. If he does that and potentially gets to a Tailteann Cup quarter-final or semi-final, I think that would be a massive achievement if he does that for Leitrim next season. And as I said, I think it's the best appointment that Leitrim could have got, and well done to all involved.
Yeah, like it's interesting, all right, because you do look at it and think, you look at the standard in Division 3 next year, as you said before, you look at some of the teams coming down, you would imagine like Kildare are more than good enough to get out of that division. I think Fermanagh were quite unlucky to get relegated as well. I actually thought they had a decent Division 2 campaign and probably were unlucky maybe not to have stayed up. And then you look at it, like you've got Sligo that are definitely on the up, like Laois are coming in on the back of, having got to a Tailteann Cup final. I don't think they're going to go straight back down. I think they're going to have eye on promotion as well. Clare, even though they've lost players, like they've proven that they're more than capable of sticking it around in this division. And then you said, like the likes of Antrim in there as well, who, you know, a lot of people discount on a year-to-year basis, but they tend to do very well. So, like, is that maybe like the worry? Maybe like Mickey Graham's going into Leitrim, and it's going to be. It is a very, like, it does feel like, although Leitrim have a lot of very good players, it does feel like it's going to be a tough job, to be honest with you, because it's like you've got to Division 3. Like, is this the ceiling now? Can you really push on? Can you really improve? Like, it's going to be difficult, I think.
Yeah, I think it is, to be fair. I think it's very, very I think it will be very difficult for Leitrim to stay up in the division. And Offaly as well, added on to that, they won't be as bad as they were this season. So I do think the relegation battle is going to be very interesting in Division 3 next year, as is the promotion battle, because you easily could have teams that could go up or they could go down. Like, if Kildare aren't careful, I think they could stay in Division 3 next season, or even like drop a few pegs. I'm not saying it will happen, but there is some tough teams in that division. Like, you have Sligo there, you have Laois, you have Fermanagh, you have Clare. Offaly are surely going to get a bounce. Leitrim, after disappointment, are surely going to get a bounce as well. Antrim aren't as bad as everybody makes them out to be. So I'd be looking at Kildare and thinking, like, look at the disappointment the Leitrim have made. Kildare have to get this right now. If they don't get it right, I'm like, some serious stuff is going to happen next season. Like, you could even be thinking about staying in the Tailteann Cup next season. You may as well get comfy, because, like, unless Kildare get a very, very good appointment, I think it could go belly up. But on Leitrim, look, I think it's the best appointment that they could have got in terms of knowing the players inside out, knowing the backroom team inside out, and experience as well. I think it's the right appointment. If they do go down eventually, Leitrim, I just think it will be down to just the players' quality. Maybe they're just not good enough for Division 3. Obviously, the proof will be in the pudding next season. But it should be interesting to see if Leitrim do stay up in the Division 3 next season. But yeah, I think it's a good appointment from a Leitrim point of view. But I know we're going off kilter a small bit, but it will be surely announced in the next few weeks. But if Kildare don't get this managerial appointment right, Aaron, I would imagine they'll find Division 3 very, very tough next season. You talked about Mickey Hart coming in. I think if Mickey Hart comes in, it will make the attitude around the camp worse. Honestly, I think if Brian Flanagan comes in, who came in for the under-20s, I think that would be the right appointment for Kildare football in terms of nurturing the young talent and bringing him through the ranks. So I think Kildare need to get this appointment right next season. If they don't, trouble could ensue.
Yeah, it's an interesting one. Like, I think a manager like Mickey Hart coming in for a year or two could galvanise the county. I think could get them on a good run, could get them on the right place, and then someone like a Brian Flanagan could come in, and with the younger players having developed more, having gotten more time. Like, I know people are looking at Mickey Hart's time at Derry and last season, how things unravelled and how things went wrong, but like Mickey Hart, like it was always going to be tough for him going to Derry because it was massive rivals. Poison chalice in many ways. Things had been very good in the previous years as well. So the only way really Mickey Hart could improve this Derry team was by winning an All-Ireland. And like, there was so much pressure on him right from the get-go. And I think that's why they have to go strong in the league, because if things had started gone wrong in the league, he mightn't have even made it to the championship. They might have even changed things before the championship, or he might have even had to have stepped down. So like, he still won 3 All-Irelands as Tyrone manager. Still think he did a very good job as Louth manager as well. Developed young players there, likes of Craig Lennon, was very good. Darren McConnon, whatnot. Got the best out players like Samuel Roy and Conor Grimes. And look, Jerry Brennan's built off that and done a fantastic job. But I still think Mickey Hart would be a great show coming into Kildare. As you said before, like, you do have Brian Flanagan, a few other lads who are knocking about. But as we've seen with the Offaly manager, like, I think you kind of nearly need to bide your time a little bit when you're bringing younger managers in, because things can go wrong very, very quickly.
But the thing is, like, if Brian Flanagan does come into Kildare, I do think the Kildare players will get the respect out of the coach, and it would be just about the style of football, kick and go, and things like that. And the underage systems will come into the senior setup. It won't happen overnight. It won't. Like, you see it with Offaly with Declan Kelly, and you see this from Cork point of view with Keith Ricken as well. But you see it even at underage setups. Cork play some brilliant football with Keith Ricken in, and then when other minor managers come in and under 20 managers come in, the style of football deteriorates, and then it translates onto the senior team, and then the senior team play absolutely crappy football and Like, the fans don't like it. You end up losing games. But my kind of issue with Mickey Hart is, with Loud, it was kind of a different kind of a standpoint to Derry or to Kildare, because once you go into Loud, you know that the players will fight for each other. Yeah, they'll fight for each other no matter who comes in. Loud have this kind of a tendency to keep on going no matter what the situation may be. But if you come in to a Derry, a Kildare, a Laois to a certain extent as well, a Kerry, a Cork, players could fight behind the scenes. It could get a bit messy. And I feel like Mickey Hart didn't get the situation under control with Derry last season. That's my worry with Kildare, because you looked at when Glenn Ryan was getting bad results last season, it looked like the confidence was just devoid out of the players. They kept making mistakes. They kept making elementary mistakes. And even when they got to the Tailteann Cup, the confidence just wasn't there even to beat Laois in the quarter-final. Like, that was Kildare in a nutshell last year. So I do believe you need a new manager in that knows Kildare inside and out, that has won under 20 titles, that has won minor titles. And I think Brian Flanagan ticks all the boxes, because you looked at that under 20 team in 2023. What I noticed with that team, whether you have some brilliant individual talent like Callum Bolton or Tomas Van Engelbrecht or Owen Cuddy or whoever it is, them Kildare players were all together as a unit. They fought for each other. And Loud did that at senior level, and it got to a Leinster final, it got them to an All-Ireland quarter final. A bit of togetherness, and it can be seen where a team can get after that. And I feel like Kildare are that kind of an example. They need to set a precedent, and they need to, get the players together. I firmly believe, Aaron, if Kildare get it togetherness in the team, if they fight for each other, I feel like Kildare will go up to Division 2 next season, probably without fuss, because you looked at, for example, my own County Cork in 2020 Division 3, we found ourselves somehow in Division 3. But as soon as we had relative good performances under Roland McCarthy, we got up to Division 2 after that, winning every single game. That's the quality that Kildare have. Kildare probably, and the funny thing is, I think Kildare have better quality players for next season than Cork had in 2020. So if Kildare have a bit of togetherness next season, as I mentioned, I feel like they'll breeze Division 3. But if something goes wrong behind the cap, which it could happen if a high enough standpoint manager comes in, then things could go wrong very, very quickly, and the media will be on their back after that. So that's my fear with Kildare. I think the most obvious appointment for them will be Brian Flanagan.
Yeah, and like, even looking at it as well, like looking at the odds and everything else, like a lot of people are saying it will be like Brian Flanagan. Even looking at Kildare now, like they're saying it's a shoe-in as well. So like, it is looking likely, in fairness, that Brian Flanagan comes in. And to be fair, as you said, look, he does know Kildare inside and out. Maybe Kildare fans will say, they had their left field appointment when they had Jack O'Connor, and look, he got a bit of a boost out of county. He got them up to Division 1. But at the same time, like, it didn't really, like, it went all right, but then he jumped ship at the first opportunity, and maybe that would be a worry for Kildare. Like, we saw Mickey Hart at Louth, he got the opportunity to jump ship and go to Derry. If he was to come into Kildare, like, who's to say he doesn't jump ship and go to, I don't know, like back to Tyrone? Maybe, probably not. He probably won't go anywhere in Ulster now at this stage, but like, maybe that would be the worry at the same time. Like, I do think Mickey Hart would be a fantastic appointment personally, but maybe that would be the worry, that he could jump ship if he gets another offer somewhere else,
Possibly, and even that's a very good example. And Jack O'Connor did, and even look back at his time as Kildare manager, did Jack O'Connor bring on Kildare to challenge with Dublin? When you look at it from the overall spectrum, no, he didn't, because you looked at it in 2020. They lost to Meath heavily. Matthew Costello scored goals for fun that day. Gerard Morris, I think, scored 2 in that semi-final. They conceded 5 goals against Meath. And that was really, really poor from Kildare point of view. Yes, they got promoted because it was just a weird format of Division 2. They got promoted alongside Mayo. They beat Meath in that promotion playoff. But that was only the one performance against Cork. And that Cork team were drab on the run of Harty, saying it mildly. So Kildare kind of got lucky to go up to Division 2. And then you look at the Leinster Championship, just the way they played against Dublin, it was almost like Jack O'Connor was just going to say, I've achieved my best. I've got under 10 points against Dublin. And the stark reality was, if Kildare opened up a small bit, and if they went after Dublin, after their kickouts and stuff like that day, they would have beat Dublin and Croke Park. They would have beat them. So, like, is this short-termism the right thing for Kildare football? It might have been under Mick O'Dwyer, but Mick O'Dwyer was a legendary coach. He was going to stick with him by stick or twist. Like, you looked at Mick O'Dwyer's managerial reigns elsewhere. Like, even look at Wicklow, who were the lower end of the spectrum. He still stuck with them even up to 2011, 2012. So he was well able to stick with those teams. But the likes of a Jack O'Connor, the likes of Mickey Hart have jumped ship once the opportunity has come, as you mentioned there, and they'll do it again if the opportunity does come. So I feel like Kildare need a long-term plan now. They have an opportunity in Division 3 to shut up the doubters and get up straight away to Division 2 next season. And I think Brian Flanagan would be the right man to do that in terms of nurturing the young talent. He knows the young players inside and out and getting his plans across as well. And like, it's going to be a change in the structure for Kildare as well, because you looked at it. Owen Doyle's now retired. Like, Owen Doyle's been around the Kildare panel since 2012. There's a new kind of age in Kildare football. And even you look at Kildare's most influential players, the Jimmy Hylands, the Dark Herons, the Kevin Feely. Kevin Feely is at the higher end of the age bracket, but Jimmy Hyland and Dark Heron are still in their late 20s. They're still young enough players. So I feel like they will bounce off the younger talent coming through in the under-20 team for 2023 if they do come through. And yeah, I feel like if Kildare get Brian Flanagan in, I think it'd be a very good appointment. But I feel like a short-term appointment would not be the best option for Kildare right now.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, anyone who's tuning in, like, let us know in the comments, and even after the podcast as well, like, let us know in the comments who you think should be the next Kildare manager. Is there anyone else as well that we haven't mentioned? Like, do give us a good shout, and obviously let us know your thoughts on Mickey Graham joining Leitrim as well. We'll move on to the All-Ireland Camogie final. I figured we might as well preview this in this podcast as well and kill two birds with the one stone. And Cork versus Galway in the All-Ireland final. Cork bidding to win this, or win back-to-back All-Irelands to win their 30th All-Ireland Camogie title in total. Galway bidding to win this for the first time since 2021. Cork coming in on the back of a very heavy win versus Dublin. Galway with the narrow win versus Tipperary. Looking at bookies odds and looking at who people are tipping as the favourites, everybody is backing Cork to win back-to-back All-Irelands. They are heavy favourites to win the All-Ireland. Is that the right, like, sort of, would you agree with that?
You don't want to be yerrying like the Kerry Pies, I suppose, going into an All-Ireland final. But looking at the fact that Cork have been exceptional in this championship, they've averaged a score 318 per game and conceded an average of 1-5 in Camogie. That's absolutely outstanding. And when you look at the group stage game in Páirc Uí Chaoimh, the scoreline was Cork 2-16, Galway 1-7. I feel like the bookies could be onto something here. I think Cork should win this game. They should. Let's be honest. Galway have the capacity to turn up in the final. But having said that, and this is another point as well, which the bookies will take into consideration. Galway are without Shauna Healy and Sarah Dorfan because of family commitments. Emma Hillebert's injured. Siobhan Gardner's injured. That's 4 big losses in the team. Niamh Kilkenny's only come back at the team this season, which is a big boost to them, obviously. They give Niamh Mallon there. You still have the likes of Orla McGrath and Siobhan McGrath going in and around the panel. Even Orla McGrath's only scored 1-5. That's only 8th out of Galway scores. Siobhan McGrath isn't on the scores list. It hasn't played for Galway as far as I know in this championship either. So that's another loss. That's 5 players. So I feel like Galway have lost a lot of players to look at. But you look at Cork's team. Every line is nearly the same as last season when they won the All-Ireland. Ashley Thompson's still there. Amy O'Connor's still there. Katrina Mackey's still there. Amy Lee's still there. The two Lauras and Tracy and Hayes are still there. Maeve Callahan's on the bench, but still in and around the panel. Aoife Healy's a brilliant player to come into midfield. And the thing is with Cork, they're adding players to the panel. They're adding players to the starting 15 that wouldn't have been on it before. Saoirse McCartan can't even get in the starting 15 this time around because of how well Orla Callahan is playing at the moment. Like, this Cork team, and I know Matthew Toomey has left his post of manager at the start of the year. Ger Madley's come in, and maybe that's another point with the Kildare footballers, bring in somebody from the backroom team that knows the camp inside out. Ger Manley was the right-hand man for Matthew Toomey last year. He's come into the hot seat as manager and he's carried on that momentum. So I think Cork have got everything right, really, and they've built the panel as well. As I mentioned, Saoirse McCartan off the bench. Clodagh Finn is a bench player. She scored 1-5 in this campaign. Cleona Healy's done brilliant in this campaign at wing forward, scoring 12 points. Like, this Cork team look on a serious trail to an All-Ireland crown. And you look at the results even. They beat Wexford by 9 points. They beat Down. They hammered them 4-21-1-7. They hammered Clare. They hammered Dublin. They hammered Galway. And they hammered Dublin in the semi-final again. Like, this Cork team are on a one-way ticket to the O'Duffy Cup, I think, this Sunday. And Galway will take a momentous effort for them to stop them. Like, Galway have come through tight games. They drew against Wexford in this campaign. They beat Dublin. Like, to put this into context, as well as the game at Páirc Uí Chaoimh between Galway and Cork, the games against Dublin, Cork hammered Dublin not once but twice this season in the Camogie Championship. Galway only beat Dublin by 3 points, 17 points to 111. I feel like Cork, the hands is already on the trophy, and you don't want to be, to put too much pressure on the girls and all that, but I don't see any way that Cork lose their grip of the O'Duffy Cup this weekend. I think Cork should win this game. It might be tight. It might be tight at half time, but I feel like Cork will have the strength and depth, the expertise just to get over the line this final.
Yeah, how have Cork improved? Like, I mean, look, they won the All-Ireland last year. They're obviously brilliant in the final against Waterford, like beat them at an absolute canter. But like, how have Cork gotten so much better? Because I don't remember them beating teams at an absolute canter last year. Like, whereas this year, as you said, like, they're beating Wexford at a pump, they're beating Galway in the groups at a pump, they're beating Dublin with their eyes closed, really. Like, it's been so convincing, it's been so comfortable. Like, what's made them so good, in your opinion, this year?
I think it's just the strength and depth in the panel and the fact that they've got the All-Ireland in the back pocket. And maybe we'll be talking about earlier with the Kerry LGFA team. Once you get one All-Ireland, there's nothing stopping after that. And I feel like with Cork, like, you look at their scores in this campaign as well. Amy O'Connor, Katrina Mackey, Orla Callahan, Cleona Healy, Saoirse McCarthy, Fiona Keating, they're all in the top 6 as well. And Saoirse McCarthy can't even get into the top 6. She can't even get into the front 6 in the forwards because of how well the other players are playing, especially Orla Callahan, who would have been an impact player kind of last season. She's come in, scored 2-2 in the semi-final against Dublin, and that was absolutely superb in that game. And I feel like Cork have just brought their performance to a whole other level in this campaign. Like, you look at Ciara O'Sullivan was injured for most of this season with a ACL injury, unfortunately, can't even get back to the team now. Hannah Looney has done brilliant at wing back. She usually would have been around either number 12 at wing forward, midfield, but she's now been dropped to wing back because of how well the forwards and the midfielders are playing. Aoife Healy's had an outstanding season in one of her up-and-coming campaigns. Laura Tracy, Laura Hayes has been superb in the half-back line as well. Maeve Callahan can't get back into the team because of how well Pamela Mackey is doing at the moment. Maeve Murphy's doing well at corner back. Like, Cork are doing well all over the pitch. And as well as that, Libby Coppinger's injured this year, long-term injury. Hopefully Libby does recover soon. But she's out of the team, and she was the colossal fullback for Cork last season. And you still have other players to step up in that Cork team, moving into that fullback role. Amy Lee is stuck to her guns in goals as well. And I give other players on the scoring list: Orla Bullins, Hayley Ryan, Rachel Harty, Ciara O'Sullivan, as I mentioned, Emma Murphy, Clodagh Finn, who scored 1 goal and 5 points in this championship. You have other players stepping up to the mantle as well. And Cork, look, it's serious fettle at the moment. Like, you even look at other players in the pan that have been over the last few years and can't even get into the panel, like Lord Holman in particular, who will be the intermediate final at the weekend against Kilkenny's second team. She scored 7 goals and 40 points in the intermediate. She's not a bad player, but she can't even get to the senior panel because of how well the other players are doing in the senior panel. So Cork are doing well. It's senior level and intermediate, and it is a scary, scary sight for the rest of the country because, like, you have players on the bench that could be thinking to themselves, why aren't I starting in this team? And you look at the senior players, the starting 15 players, they ain't moving in that starting 15, and that's probably the main thing about this. I was chatting to Dan Casey about this at Cork's Red FM last Saturday, and we compared Saoirse McCartan to what Shane Kingston is to the hurlers. Doesn't want to be a super sub, but she is. Like, she's an excellent super sub. Scored 1-1 in the 1 goal in the semi-final against Dublin. was brilliant last year. Obviously scored the first goal against Waterford in the senior final last season. She can't even get to the team now. So I think it's about building a panel, and the temperament of winning an All-Ireland has just made them hungry for more. So I think Cork, a lot of factors gone down to this, but Joe Manley and the players deserve a lot of credit to how well Cork have done this season.
Yeah, like I think one thing that stood out for me from watching them as a neutral point of view is that, like, you look at some teams and they've got one star player. There's one player you look at and think that's the big player, that's the big name player. Whereas what makes Cork so good is that they have so many, as you said before. Like, you have Amy O'Connor, you have Orla Cahalan, you have Katrina Mackey, you know, you have Saoirse McCarthy as well. Like, you have so many big players who are stepping up. So that if one has an off day, another one will step up, you know, and it kind of does. Like, there are comparisons, I think, with all the great GA teams. You know, they never just had one great player. They had multiple great players. And that's what really separates, I think, a team that wins one All-Ireland and a team that maybe wins 2 or 3 on the bounce. And I think that's what's very much there for Cork. And the way that they move the ball, the speed, the quickness, the pace. It's unlike any team I've seen in Camogie for quite a while, to be honest with you. And what they're scoring as well, like the amount they're scoring. You know what I mean? Like, they're beating most teams by double digits half the time, by double scores. And it is very unusual to see at the best of times. But look, there is another team in the final. It's not done. You know, the final isn't over. Is there a weakness? Is there any hope, do you think, for Galway? And like, from you've watched Cork in Camogie a lot more this year than I would have. So I mean, is there a weakness there? Is there an area that Galway can exploit, that maybe will get their hands on the All-Ireland come Sunday?
I think the main thing from a Galway point of view is to quieten down Cork's forwards, because the only time they've won the Munster Championship, they've won every game in the All-Ireland series. In the league, they only lost, I think, 1 game, and that was to Tipperary, the league champions. And what Tipperary did was they utilised the likes of Mairead Evanston very well to keep a close eye on Amy O'Connor, and their defenders kept an eye on key Cork forwards. Amy didn't score that much that day. Amy wasn't in the game as much. I think Galway have to repeat that trick. They have to get the likes of Roisin Black, Dervla Higgins. Dervla Higgins been superb this season, probably a Player of the Year nominee in my opinion. I think you have to get those 2 players in particular to go on 2 of Cork's best forwards. And look at the scores. I think Katrina Mackey and Amy O'Connor fit the bill there. I don't know what Conor Murray will do in this. I don't know, would he put Roisin Black on Amy O'Connor, or vice versa? Would he put Katrina Mackey? Roisin Black on Katrina Mackey. But when you watched Roisin Black play, and I watched the All-Ireland quarter-final that Galway had against Waterford, had a privilege to do so alongside Seamus Brady in Croke Park, and we watched both Roisin Black in the full back row, and Seamus was saying to me, Roisin Black is the best full back in the country, no question. And you looked at her defend. She defended against Waterford, the likes of Niamh Rockett, the likes of Beck Harton, and that day against Waterford expertly at times. And I feel like she has to have a 10 out of 10 performance for Galway to have anything in this game. Dervla Higgins the same, who's had an excellent campaign as well. And as well as that, Carrie Dolan needs to convert every free. I know it's easier said than done, but she needs to do that. And to be fair, she scored 23 frees in this championship in the All-Ireland series. So, like, she is capable of putting frees over the bar. Niamh Mannon as well. 3 goals, 20 points in the championship, 3-14 from play. She has to have a game of her life as well. Obviously coming from County Down, it's a massive player to come in for Galway. Ailish O'Reilly as well, Niamh Niall and Sabina Rabbis. They have to have a brilliant game in this game as well. Niamh McPeak, Niamh Kilkenny in midfield. I think the midfield duo, I don't know, will this be the exact midfield duo on the day, but Niamh Kilkenny and Aoife Donoghue, I think, have to have the games of their lives as well, because they have a capability to turn it on. Like, Aoife Donoghue has been a player of the match in so many games for Galway going down through the years. Niamh Kilkenny, I think, was Player of the Year 1 year, potentially 2019. She was excellent in that 2019 final against Kilkenny. But I feel like Niamh Kilkenny, she is in her mid-30s, I'd imagine now, but this might be her last hurrah to go on and win an All-Ireland. So this might be a big game for her as well. But like, maybe it's about turning up on the right day possible, because you looked at like even I'm trying to think now, even the hurling final, you looked at Cork and Clare. You would have said on form Cork would have won that game. But Clare went into the final. They performed mid kind of performance against Kilkenny. They didn't perform well in the first half. They performed well in the second half, but then in the final they produced a perfect performance and got over Cork in the line, despite Cork performing well themselves. I think Galway need to produce a similar performance to the Clare Hurlers to have any chance in this game, and they need to get their matchups right as well. They need to have a good day in midfield with Donoghue and Kilkenny, and they need to win the tight battles as well. And maybe something that will stand to Galway as well. In the quarterfinal and the semi-final, they had tight games. They beat Waterford by 3 points, and they beat Tipperary by 1 point. I feel like Cork against Dublin, they whitewashed them, simply. Will this stand to Galway that they had tighter games in these games, or will Cork just brush them aside? We'll have to see on Sunday, but I feel like Galway have to get it right, particularly in the full back line, their matchups, and in midfield to win this game.
Yeah, that's the thing, isn't it? Is that we saw so often this year when teams haven't really been tested, they've come into games maybe a little bit cold and then been caught. I think that's what's happened with Kerry against Armagh, Dublin to a certain extent against Galway in football as well. So could that maybe be a worry that Cork are coming in maybe not tested enough? I mean, look, they've been so good that there's a reason they haven't been tested, because they've been by far better than the competition. But could that maybe be a bit of a worry? And considering how mad this year's championship has been, there's been so many shocks, there's been so many surprises. Would it really be that big of a surprise if Galway won, given how crazy this year's championship has been? I know every game has its own scenario, and look, I mean, Cork, when you look at it, they should win this, and they should win it comfortably. But it has been a mad year in terms of GAA, where so much cannot be explained, and it just probably would be the most 2024 thing ever for Galway to go and win this game.
Maybe so. You look at the other 3 grades, there's been shocks all over. But when you look at the grand landscape of the Camogie Championship, there hasn't been much shocks. Cork have brushed aside nearly everybody. Galway brushed aside Down, they brushed aside Clare at the group stage as well. They beat Waterford and they beat Tipperary by 1 point as well. I think the only shock at the Camogie Championship really was the Kilkenny Dublin game in the quarterfinal in Croke Park. That was probably the one real shock where people took up and said, whoa, that is a huge shock. But then the other games, it was nip and tuck and all that. So maybe this game will take a life of its own as well. But yeah, I think Galway have definitely capabilities of overcoming Cork. Cork would have been fancied by many to win the title in 2021. And then Galway go ahead and win that title in Croke Park that year. So it isn't normally a case where the name's written on the trophy before the game. And I'm sure Ger Manley and the players, whether it be Amy O'Connor, Laura Tracy, etc., would know this as well. They have to turn up to go ahead and win this game. And I think that might be the difference, that Cork won't have the temperament of just saying, this is done, lads. We may as well rest our team. I think Cork would go hell for leather in the first 2 minutes and try to get this game over and done with before a sticky enough end to the game. But Galway, there's always the temper. Niamh Kilkenny's experienced All-Ireland winner. So is Aoife Donoghue. So is Ailish O'Reilly. So is Carrie Dolan. They have won All-Irelands before, and plenty of them. So there's always a tendency for Galway to win this game. They'll have to produce a big performance to do so, though.
Yeah, look, I know you're back in Cork to win it, even if you do have a Limerick jersey on. But how many points are you thinking Cork win it by?
I think, believe it or not, I'd say it would be a tight enough game. I'd say it'd be about, I'm going to say 4 or 5 points that Cork win it by. But it'll be close for a stage, but I think Cork might power on in the last 10 minutes.
Yeah, I think so as well. I think we have saw surprises this year in shocks across all codes of the GA, but I don't think we'll see one here. I think Cork have stayed consistent throughout the year. They've been consistently beating teams. And I think the big thing that stands out as well, when they played Galway this year, they beat them fairly comfortably as well. And I think that's something that's important to know in regards to that. So, yeah, I'm going to go with a Cork win as well. In terms of a points difference, I'd probably go with an 8-point win for Cork. I think Galway will stick in it for large parts. They might ruffle Cork's feathers at different moments, but ultimately I think Cork will come good. Look, we'll go ahead and wrap this up here. Cheers anyone who tuned in. If you could hit the like button and subscribe, that would be very much appreciated. Make sure to check out Matthew's podcast at A Gaelic Statsman as well. And until the next one, plenty more content to come soon. And until the next one, we will speak to you all then.